Dave Williams presents Conversations.buzz.
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Very well. Kind
Yeah,
of healthy. Kind of happy that the Dodgers just signed Shohei Ohtani,
Did they?
a $700 million 10-year deal.
Which means they won't be able to pay anybody else between now and then.
Isn't that great?
Well, as a newborn Texas Rangers fan,
You don't
not
care.
since they won the World Series, since I got here in Dallas 12 years ago.
Yeah,
I'm just glad to have them in the National League.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah, I'm happy that Bochy won again.
oh, he's just the greatest.
Yeah.
There are so many. Everybody here was so excited when he was hired.
I'll
Because of
bet.
his track record, of course, but also just because he's a terrific guy.
Well, yeah, he is.
All the local interviews and stuff, he's just delightful.
Yeah, he's great. They test me, but yeah, they're a good bunch.
Bob, I cannot tell you how many people I've I let the word slip that I was going to be talking with you and that I would try to get this on stream tomorrow on Sunday, and people just come. 30. What is it? 30, 42, 15, 70. A whole bunch of time
Yeah,
later since you and I started working together in 1981. So that's 42 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
And I believe you left my partnership with you 30 years ago, 1993. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say that it's been a long time, and there are people still coming out of the woodwork. I mean, it's just amazing how many people still remember us. I get emails and references on social media on a weekly basis. I really do, and people still saying we were just the best thing in radio. And I don't know what you remember. Frankly, I don't remember anything specific. I thought, I'd sit and talk to you about some of the things that we did and the places we worked together and frankly, very, very little comes to mind, except that by and large, it was a wonderful relationship, and we did a terrific job because we had a chemistry that I had never experienced before in the business and haven't experienced since.
Well, I'll tell you what it comes down to my way of thinking. What worked is A, you're a great talent, and B, I'm a good second banana because I recognize a great talent.
Well,
and you and I are contemporaries, and we had something very much in common, and that is our number one concern with doing a show. And I asked this question. I've asked it a bunch of times when I've been a guest lecturer at college communications programs and high school journalism classes and so on. What's the most important aspect of not just radio, but any communication entity that you can think of, whether it be print, television, broadcast, anything, any communication? And what's the single most important? And most people say talent. And I say, no, it's not it. And then they think about it and they say, oh, well, okay, sales, because that's where the money's made. No, it's not it. Management? No, they'd like to think so, but they're famously incompetent. Nobody ever got it on the first crack. It's the audience.
Yeah.
It's the audience. And you and I directed our program and everything we did for the benefit of the audience.
Yeah. Well,
they loved us back for it.
There were two reasons for that. One that I have been trying to explain ever since in so many different radio stations and so many different markets. Number one is neither one of us had any desire to be journalists or even news people. Yeah, we were radio people, and that's it. And to our way of thinking, most important part of that, regardless of what kind of format we were doing, if we were playing records or we were playing telephones or we were playing newscasts, the most important thing was to hold the audience's attention. Without that, there's no point in doing anything.
Really? You remember the phrase, give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world?
Oh, God, yeah, I worked there. KFWB.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's been attributed to Norm Woodruff,
right. I
a
don't know
news
if he ever
director.
did it or not, if he said that or not, but
I don't know either, but that's the typical average time spent listening, which is a forgotten number in radio ratings.
yeah.
TSL, we used to call it. And if people got 22 minutes a day out of you, they'd be happy.
Mm-hmm.
If radio shows got that. We had 90 minutes
Yeah.
was our time spent
Unheard
listening.
of in the
Yeah,
industry, especially when you consider the time of day. We were on from 5 until 9 in the morning. People had lives they were preparing.
they're
And
trying to get ready to go to work. They got to go out and start the car. Sometimes it's cold and frosty. And
and who listens to the radio for 90 minutes in the middle of all that? A lot
well,
of people.
they did. Record numbers. I don't think our ratings have been topped.
Well, I don't think so either. I can't speak with a great deal of authority historically for Sacramento radio audio ratings since that time, but I know there was a period of time you and I were absolutely not only head and heels over the number 2 station at the time, which I believe probably, well, it depends. If we're talking about KFBK, it was probably crack. I'm not sure.
No,
Maybe.
it was actually those. There's one in every market. Morning Zoo
Oh yeah, the Morning Zoo. Right, right. I'm sorry. I apologize for forgetting.
on 102 in Woodland. Yeah,
Yeah,
crack was. They were way down the list, but
yeah. I suppose.
right now in Sacramento, well, I shouldn't say right now. Last time I was aware of it was probably 3, 4 years ago. Number one had a 5 or a 6 share,
Yeah, yeah.
and that would have been number two when we were on,
And we
and we
had
were
twice
anywhere
that or
from
more.
19 to 21.
Right. Exactly. We had 20 shares. Yeah, and people on radio today can say, well, there aren't that many people listening to radio now. They've got a lot more competition. That's true. There are also more radio stations in Sacramento than there were at the time. So there's that consideration too. But the fact of the matter is, you and I were known to the point where we get recognized out in the street or in a grocery store from being on radio. You say, what's that
Yeah.
all about?
Well, at one point they did put our mugs up on a billboard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing though I was going to mention, besides the fact that neither one of us ever had any desire to be considered news authorities because it was such a stuffy attitude.
Yeah.
And I'm not criticizing people who go on local radio or TV and doing their jobs. It's a fine career. It really is. It's just that you and I never wanted to do that. We just
Nope.
kind of got sucked into it. And it worked out well. But the other part of what you and I had in common was our theater and our ability to
Yeah.
interact with each other in real and total character. And that's the thing that so many people in our business still don't understand. I can't tell you how many times I would be talking with somebody in Los Angeles radio. I remember one program director saying, I really like this new woman I hired. I think she's got a great talent and a great deal of shows a lot of promise, but I can't get her to just loosen up and be herself or something. I said, for God's sakes, we are in Hollywood. Find her a theater coach, a drama coach. Teach her to act. And nobody that I know of to this day ever got that. And I didn't know really how to explain it, but I think it had everything in the world with our ability to interact with each other.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and what do you do in theater to make that work? You take care of the audience.
That's right.
Yeah. If you don't have the audience, what you have is a board with a bunch of dials on it and goodwill, which is all radio is, but with no audience, you're essentially a parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah. People still ask you what happened, how it ended. Dave and Bob.
Mostly they ask me, why did you leave?
Yeah.
And I said, they insisted.
Right.
Why? Well, maybe they got tired of counting money. I don't know.
There's, I mean, it's water under the bridge, but it was a tough time. It was a tough time for both of us. I remember thinking very seriously that I couldn't continue, because it certainly wasn't going to be the same without you. And I had and I had news people calling, TV people calling me at home, and newspaper calling me at home wanting a comment. I said, I can't give you a comment. Who cares? Things change.
Yeah,
People
I
have to
did at
move
the
on.
time, and I knew 3 years before it happened what day it was going to happen, and it turned out I was 1 day off.
Really?
Yeah, and my contract expired on a Friday, and they did it on a Thursday. But I knew because there's no goodbye on radio. They're not going to risk having me go on the air.
Yeah.
But I knew when I signed a 3-year deal, I committed a cardinal sin in radio. I didn't have an agent, and I beat the general manager in a contract negotiation. Well, you can't do that and live to tell about it. So 3 years later, and he was chomping at the bit to yeah, come on, 3 years, come on. I mean, we're talking about demonstrably the stupidest man to manage a radio station.
I will be honest with you. I don't remember who the manager was at that time, and I don't suppose we ought to be saying his name, as we're going to kick him around a little bit. But I think I know. Was he the same? Was he the one that took over after we were hired? After?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's the same guy, not only that broke up the Dave and Bob show, but that told Rush Limbaugh that guys like him were a dime a dozen, and he wasn't going to pay him $100,000 a year.
And now, as I recall, we'll come back to that. I'm not just trying to sweep that under the rug, but I wasn't in that conversation, so it's only hearsay based on what Rush told you. I'm not.
No, I was there.
Him. Pardon me?
I was in on it.
Were you?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
I'm the one who told him that he was worth that.
Yeah.
When they were offering him, they were paying him less than they were paying me.
Oh, they were paying Rush, as I recall, it was like $24,000 a year.
32.
He wanted 27, right?
Yeah. Well, originally, but then at the time that he wanted a new contract, and they were trying to get him to sign up a 3-year deal, they were paying him 32.
Oh, okay.
And he wanted he wanted 60 or something like that. I said, Rush, you're worth 100 in this market.
Yeah.
And he said, how? And I said, by every metric that you use, just take 15% of the gross, what they pay a salesperson, and figure out the revenue on your show. And it comes out to over $100,000, 15% commission to you, the talent. That's what you should be making, because the salespeople who are selling time on your show are making that. You ought to. He said, well, I don't know if I could get that. Well, ask for it and tell them you're worth it. So he did. And the guy, the manager, laughed at him. He said, guys like you are a dime a dozen. And this is what he told me. But he made him an offer, and the offer was a 3-year deal that topped out at 60. And Rush and I sat down. This is not scandalous, on his bed in his bedroom at his house. And we had some notes, and we're coming up with little things that you can put in a contract that you give them something to throw away, and they're happy. So we're asking for personal appearance money. We're asking for extra money for doing live reads, because they had him reading 10 minutes of live commercials every hour. And that's an implied endorsement any way you look at it.
You and I got paid to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So you should get X number of dollars for every live, and you should have the right to refuse to do a live if you don't want to endorse that product, or if you don't know that product. Also, if you get an offer for $100,000 a year from another station, you can break the contract. Make him put his mouth where his money is.
Yeah.
So that got put in there. And when it came back, there was very little of that was thrown out. But the retort to the ask for an out if you got $100,000 offer was, okay, but it has to be in a top 5 market.
Right. I remember
and
that.
I said, Rush, who else is going to give you that?
Right.
Sign it. He signed it, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And he disappeared from Sacramento on June 7th, 1988. I know that because the last thing he did before leaving town was come to my wedding, which was June 6th. I'm sorry, June 4th. I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
Whoops.
Yeah, but yeah, Rush is another topic of conversation. It comes up all the time for me.
Yeah,
always want, people always asking the same thing, and I'm sure that you got a lot of it over the years too. And you knew Rush much better than I did. You were much closer to him. I believe he was the godfather to your daughter.
Yeah.
And but I knew Rush well enough. We had hung out somewhat. I took him to his first country bar. He took him to the Yellow Rose. He went out and he bought his first ever pair of jeans for that.
Wow.
And wore his Pittsburgh Steelers jersey. He figured that was, probably about as close to country as he was going to get. Yep. And I also tell the story about how we managed to talk him into a river raft one day.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you introduced him to Wildwater, his first ever.
It was the guy's from Missouri, and it was the first time he had ever been in a natural body of water.
It's hard to believe, yeah.
And boy, was he ever in a natural body of water.
Yeah.
Because about halfway through the trip, we hit what was the curve? The Marconi, not the Marconi curve. I'm thinking of the freeway.
The curve was right down by Fred Anderson's house, and I don't know that it had a name, but it was after the San Juan Rapids.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. That's what you were thinking of, and I don't know the corner. I don't know the name of it. I know the corner because we've been down there 100 times.
Yeah, right. You and I used to go river rafting quite a bit after work during the summer.
Yeah.
And
one time we heading for the wall.
Yeah, we talked Rush into going with us. And we were all sitting there in the raft, moving. Anybody who's ever rafted the American River, that stretch of the American going through Sacramento knows it was very, very mild.
Yeah, it's not a Class 5 rapid.
No. So we hit a little bit of a ripple going through that area. As you said, it was downstream from the San Juan Rapids. And there was a curve and a cliffside, a wall.
Right.
And we were going in a straight line, and we were headed toward it, and we handed Rush the paddle and said, Rush, when we get to the wall there, just give it a little tap. You don't have to push hard or anything. Just kind of guide us in the opposite.
Yep.
Well,
absorb the impact with your elbows and push back.
Right. And he stiff-armed that thing. That's it. And we all went over. And the boat flipped. Rush went in the water. You went in the water. I went in the water. The ice chest full of beer went in the water. I think I had sunglasses and a cigarette in my mouth at the time and you and I come up laughing, and Rush was just absolutely horrified.
Yep. He
was in a real panic, a serious panic. Although, as we explained to him at the time, so Rush, it's only 4 feet deep.
But it is moving, and you don't want your feet to hit the bottom. So float.
Keep your feet up off the bottom. Yeah. Just wait a minute. You can see where this ends. You'll be able to walk here in a minute.
Well, you assumed the role of captain and started barking out orders. You said, I'll get the boat. You get Rush.
Right.
Nice move. You did get the boat and one of the oars.
And Rush started climbing you like a ladder.
Oh, man. Yeah, I got my arm around his neck like this, and my right hand in his lower back. And I wouldn't let him turn around because he'd have climbed me like a tree.
Yeah.
And we'd have both gone under. And I talked him into.
And I'm sure that position freaked him out, because I think a person in his situation at the time, what he wants is to grab onto you.
Right.
And he can't do it because you're behind him.
But I told him I wasn't gonna let him, because it was not in our best interest. And so we're just gonna float until this water stops moving.
Yeah.
And eventually it did, and we got to stand up. Well, you came up with the raft, and I said, Rush, I'm gonna get you into the raft, but I'm gonna let you go. So hang on to the side of the raft for about 10 seconds at the most. No. relax. Remember? Relax. So I went under the boat, came up the other side, reached over and grabbed his wrists that were hanging on. And then we pulled him into the raft. And the next morning, he got on his talk show and he talked about that incident for 3 hours.
Yes, he did.
About how we saved his life.
Absolutely did.
We got hate mail.
Right. For saving the guy's life.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I don't remember if now it was that during that somewhat brief period of time. I think somehow I became program director of that station for about a year, and it was up until the time Rush left or thereabout. And I don't remember if this was the same time, but I went in one morning. I told him, I walked into his show right after, and I said, when he was in a commercial break, and I said, when you come out of break, I want you to introduce me. I know it's weird, but just let me talk on the air for a moment. So he did. And I said, hi, I'm Dave Williams. And, you know, from the morning show, I'm da-da-da-da. I said, as another job here, I'm the program director, and it's my job to make sure that the radio station, you know, I'll try to explain it. I said, I got to tell you the truth, folks. I say, you're my friends, but I am up to my ears in hate mail, phone calls, and so much, you know. Rush was so controversial in those days. And the funny thing is he was so much funnier than he became as a national host. And, you know, I mean, he was just honing his skills there in Sacramento. But I got so much hate mail and calls and demands. And finally, the final straw was when I got a thing. What do you call it? The thing people fill out, you know,
diary.
Yeah, no. People made they put in their names saying that he needed to be fired.
A complaint form of some sort.
It was from a church.
Oh,
anyway, I know, a simple word, and I can't think of it.
You got the freedom to turn that dial off if it bothers you that much. Don't try to end the man's livelihood, for crying out loud.
Yeah. I said, number one, we're not going to fire Rush. Rush is the best thing we got. Number two, you don't have to listen, you know. And number three, I said, the Constitution of the U.S. gives you the right to free speech, but it doesn't insist on it. Somebody should shut the hell up. And that was one big reason I finally just said, I can't do this and do the morning show at the same time. It really messed with my head.
Yeah,
trying to do the morning show, because part of what you and I did was to go against what management was telling us. And now here I was representing management, sitting there in the room. But
bit of a spot, was it?
A little bit.
Yeah, that business about going against what management, I guess anybody who's successful in radio kind of did that.
Yes, that's true.
And maybe we were the first to do it in a news format. I can't believe that, but it's possible.
You know, a few years ago, you sent me a bunch of cassette tapes that we had. We used to record every show.
Just returned them to you.
Well, I've still got them.
Borrowed them for some reason and forgot about them. So
I've got them, and I have listened a little bit to some of them over the years. And I kind of feel bad now that I don't have a little bit of our show to play for people. But the thing that struck me was, for all of the praise that we got for our work there in Sacramento together, I listen to these things now and they go, man, we were really laid back. We were easy going. I'm sorry, we were boring here.
No,
not all the time.
I don't think we were boring. I think we were not top 40.
Maybe that's all it was.
I think we were just having a chat in the morning and keeping good company, and people seemed to enjoy that.
Yeah,
and it worked.
Yeah, sure.
I know there was a guy or two that worked for the local newspaper that didn't much care for our style.
Oh yeah, well. Yeah, there were them, right?
Yeah. There was lots of criticism. But
Well, yeah, again, it goes back to the fact that what the mold that we did break was people doing news on the radio and joking about it, making fun of it and actually being opinionated. And
yeah, yeah. And I was told when I was let go, you remember the 5 minute news feature that we had from ABC every morning, right?
yeah,
Um, Paul Harvey.
right.
So when I was let go, one of the things I was told was, we're getting a lot of negative comments about you, Robert. And I said, more or less than Rush. And the guy goes, and you're editorializing in the news again. And I said, more or less than Paul Harvey. Oh, man. I knew I was toast. He'd already told me so. So I'm just giving it back to him and not letting him off easy. But yeah, Paul Harvey opinionated on every story he told, and he was the #1 newscaster in America.
Right.
He was the top radio personality in America.
I think the
So,
industry is finally awakened to the fact that if you don't get people involved with their listening, active listening instead of just passive listening, tell them something that makes them think, makes them
yeah,
react a little bit, then you're just background noise if you don't do that.
yep, yep. So years later, I'm at another station and we carried the OJ trial live.
Yeah.
And that program director, who you know very well,
Yeah.
called me in because my show's urban audience went sky high. And urban in those days was a euphemism for
Right.
blacks.
Exactly.
And ratings are
How's that for a
going
slap
up.
in the face?
And we're
You're a
making
nice
nice.
black family living out in the country, and I guess you don't qualify because you're not urban. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, yeah. So I get called into a meeting, and this guy says, I want you to find the polarizing issues. It's not what we did, not what I do.
Yeah.
I'll comment on things, but I'm not looking to stir up trouble
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah.
And he wants me to find the polarizing issues. And I said, you've said that twice. Are you asking me to race bait? And he says, I want you to find the polarizing issues. And that's when I told him, well, you need to find somebody else then, because I'm not going to do that. I mean,
Again, so much of the industry didn't understand the subtle but distinct difference
yep.
between. And I used to say this here in Dallas, and I did it in Los Angeles when I was at KNX. I said, I will give you my opinion, but I'm not trying to talk you out of yours. I'm not trying to argue about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can very well change my mind, and people did that all the time. It's just a matter of let's engage in a little thought here, but you don't
I
have
think
to
Rush
be
used to call
polarizing. You don't have to set fire to the building.
right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think sometimes that we were very, very fortunate in the time that we spent on the air, certainly the time that we spent on the air together. And having just retired in the last 6 weeks myself.
What?
You didn't know that?
I don't think so.
Really? Well, let me catch you up. I am out of radio.
Wow. Maybe I knew that and forgot. A
I
couple of
don't think
old
maybe
guys
you
here.
didn't. Maybe you didn't. But no, I had I had a health scare at the end of July, last day of July. Carolina and I came out of a restaurant. Had lunch. We went to the car, and I was unlocking the car door. Next thing I know, I'm being loaded into the back of an ambulance. About 15 or 20 minutes had passed, and I had passed out. I just blacked out, hit the pavement, and was out. They took me to the hospital. They did a bunch of tests. They kept me overnight for observation. For the next 3 months, I had to go to a neurologist, and a cardiologist on a fairly regular basis, and they did everything: EKGs, ECGs, BVDs, everything they could do to scan my brain and my heart. And at the end of it all, they came up with the idea. They said, "You know what? You're fine. We can't find anything. We can't find anything wrong with you." They both said the same thing independently. They didn't even know each other, and they said, I think it was the neurologist who said, we don't know what happened, but we do know what did not happen. You did not have a heart attack. You did not have a stroke. You don't have a brain tumor or anything approaching it. I said, stop right there. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm going home.
So
what I have to ask you about is,
pardon?
were you unconscious or conscious during the ambulance trip?
I came around just as they were putting me in the ambulance, but I was very, 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 very hazy. The neurologist figured later that day, she said, I think you probably have a concussion because you hit the pavement pretty hard.
Okay, well, one of the most embarrassing things to do is to watch traffic through your feet.
I don't remember.
Looking out the back window of the ambulance as they're taking you someplace.
But after we got home, first of all, the state of Texas won't let you drive for 3 months if you blacked out somewhere. It makes a little bit of sense. Most states have something like that. So I was not able to drive for 3 months. And I sat home, and I rather enjoyed it. And my lovely and feisty Carol Ann said, you know what? You're 72 years old, man. Why don't you just stop?
Pack it in.
And I did. And I'm very happy. Gotten to sleep past 2:30 in the morning for the first time in 40 years.
How's that going?
Huh?
Are you able to do that, or do you still kind of wake up at a
No, a lot of people ask that. I sleep until usually it's like 5:45 to 6:15. By 6 o'clock, usually I'm up, and that's good for me. I love getting up that time of the morning, and going to bed still relatively early, but not at 8 o'clock like I was for so long. You told me, I remember very distinctly, and I've told this story many times. In fact, a lot of the things that you said that were so very funny, I've repeated to people. I always give you credit too, because I don't care who, if it's funny, it's funny. But you after you retired, I know you were doing construction work for a while, and I remember talking to you on the phone. By the way, in case people think we're just getting together for the first time in many, many years, no, we talk about once a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember you telling me, I said, so how's retirement? You were fairly early into it, and you said, well, I've learned how to spend 2 hours picking out an avocado.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. And now here I am.
Bought an avocado today. Yeah. Looked at every one of them. Picked up every one of them.
Had some conversation along the way.
Yeah.
You still singing?
No, I stopped.
No, really?
Yeah. Again, people insisted. Stop. I had a couple of groups. I think you saw one of them. It was a men's quartet.
Yeah.
And one of the guys in the group was the original tenor from the Four Lads.
Right. I remember that.
Jimmy Arnold. He was just a sweet, sweet guy. And that group, we sang together. Jimmy ultimately left because he wanted to retire again. And we replaced him, but we sang professionally for 7 or 8 years. And that was fun. And then when it stopped, I was quite a while between groups that I had a desire to sing with. And a good friend of mine who is a music director was getting bored. He had kind of retired, and he was a little bit bored. And he said, we should put together another group. Okay. So I selected some people, and we made it for 3 years. And my rule was no drama. We don't want any drama in this, because that's what kills you.
You mean like conflict?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just don't bring your drama to this. So I picked out people who were just not going to do it. Well, it turns out it was the music director who brought the drama in and
Of course.
made it a little uncomfortable for people, and we stopped rehearsing, and I was sweating getting through the bookings that I had for the rest of that year. But that group sounded good. It was a 10 voice, men and women, mixed voices, and we did jazz arrangements, and we did Christmas concerts, and we did patriotic concerts, and yeah, people loved it. It had a dumb name, Folsom Gold is what we called it. I wanted to call it the gold standard, and I got outvoted on that. That's a little pretentious. That's a little arrogant. Gold standard. Well, we're going to be singing standards, and
Right. And it's when you have to explain it, you realize you're
yep,
voted.
yep. Okay, what do you guys want?
So what about theater? Are you doing any theater?
No, no. I did. I kind of did Groucho one more time because the theater where I originally did that, Chautauqua Theater, they called and said, "You want to do it one more time?" And I said, "No." And why not? Here's why not.
Well,
that show that I did with Groucho, which by the way paid off a mortgage. Thank you, Mr. Marks. I appreciate that. I played him at 4 different ages. You start out as a boy with the brothers, and then you spend a goodly portion of the first act, the most of the first act, as the character that we remember from the movies and so on, with the mustache and the cigar, and then intermission comes back, and I've aged. Groucho is the one that we saw hosting You Bet Your Life.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, I played him as an 87-year-old man with all of the aging and costume change going on set, on the stage while people are watching and I'm talking. It was really a very nice show that we enjoyed, and people loved it. But I couldn't play the young guy anymore.
Yeah.
And so the theater said, "We'll buy you a wig." And I said, "Okay, that's 2 reasons I don't want to do it." I don't want to wear a wig. Okay. So we arrived at an amount of money that would make me do it.
That show is called Minnie's Boys.
So that was good. But in looking at the video of that show, I thought, I'm too old, too slow, and too fat to do this. So, I'd stopped auditioning years ago because I never had, very few times did I have a good experience auditioning for a theater part.
Yeah.
And I never hurt a show that I was in. And I was typically asked to be in it because we were on the radio.
Right.
And that meant ticket sales.
Yeah.
So I would take a part if it was something that I wanted to do and the director wanted me and I didn't have to audition. And some people call that arrogant. I just called it practical.
No, it's just doing it your way.
Yeah, it made
there's nothing wrong with it.
And I thought the only time that I will audition is if I really want a part and it's not being offered to me. And the only one I could think of is Tevye.
I was going to say, that was going to be my choice. It's like everybody looking at you right now is going, "Oh my God, he should be doing Fiddler."
Well, I had done a whole bunch of the parts that I always, Harold Hill in The Music Man, and Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady, and Camelot, and a lot of the plays that I wanted to do, I'd done, but never Tevye, and I wanted to do that. So it came up recently up here, and I went out to an audition, and I want those 4 hours of my life back. It was a total waste of time.
The audition process?
Yes. Yeah.
4 hours?
Yeah. One of the directors, well, the director, I guess, was a dancer and a choreographer.
Uh-oh.
And so I'm talking 2 hours a night. There were callbacks. And the owner of the theater decided that he wanted to play Tevye because it was something that he always wanted to do.
Of course.
So it was pretty much understood how that was going to go.
Right.
But about an hour and a half of the first 2 hour audition was spent learning the choreography that you were going to do in a dance movement part. Well, Tevye is not on his toes.
No.
he's he's an old guy.
He just bounces and does this with his hands,
Yeah.
right?
And so everybody is, and I say everybody, the turnout must have been 16 people tops, not enough to even cast the show. But I figured by showing up, I'd made a commitment. So when they called me back, I went the second night, and oh man, by the time that was over, I was hoping that I wouldn't get cast. And I didn't. So I'm done. That's it.
I hear you.
How
Now,
about you?
about what?
Any theater or any sort of
No,
creative? You had
I'll
enough?
tell you, my theater experience is a lot like my radio, and that was that I had one really great uh, experience, one really great place for me. It was Stage Door Comedy Playhouse in Sacramento, and it was such a family thing that I became part of their family, and Jerry Grisham and Laura Darzell and Bud Rice had put together the theater, and they ran it for so long, and they had such great success, and I became part of their family. And I would take over Jerry and Laura's house when they would go on vacation, and they asked me to take over the theater when they gave it up, and I decided no, I wasn't going to do that because it wasn't going to be the same. But I never had any desire to go audition anywhere else. I just didn't. And then, and I wrote a few plays, and we ran them there, and they went fine. And they ran in other places too. As a matter of fact, I went to Romania, where they staged a production of my very first comedy at the National Theater.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there in the audience with all these Romanians, and I don't understand a word that the cast is saying. The set is great. These actors are really fantastic. I can tell that, but I can't tell what they're saying. But I know,
But
the laughs are coming in the right place.
Yeah, that's good.
And the check cashed.
Yeah.
Nice. So that was a big thrill. But no, I haven't. I've been thinking a little bit about it now that I'm retired. It's like, well, I have one connection in the Dallas theater, and might start poking around a little bit, but I don't have any desire to act anymore. For one thing, I quit. I got to a point, even at Stage Door, where I could no longer remember my lines. Just couldn't do the memorization work. Not willing to do the development work that it takes in taking a new play and making it work. When I'm done writing. You guys do what you want with it.
Yeah.
The way I feel about it.
So how many plays did you write? There were 5?
Yeah, 5 that I finished, 5 that got performed, 1 that was a big mistake. And I enjoy writing, but I don't know, I'm getting a little bit lazy, but I don't think that's got anything to do with retirement or even my age. It's just a matter of, it's like, yeah, I've done it.
Yep, been there, done that.
Yeah. And so I was just going to ask you, I've people telling me that the problem with being retired is that they get bored. And my first thought is, well, that's on you. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with the life that's going on around you.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I heard somebody say once that people who are bored are boring.
I heard that just today, as a matter of fact, that exact line. Yeah.
I don't know if it's true or not. There's another adage that stuff that needs doing expands to fill the time available.
Right.
There's always something to do.
Yeah.
And in my case, there's so much to do that I have no problem putting it off.
Yeah.
And it's like a t-shirt, I said I'd fix it. You don't have to nag me every 6 months. I'll do it. But there's always stuff to do. I play golf. I ride a motorcycle. I have a convertible. I got a bicycle. I got kayaks. There's all kinds of things to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Biggest thing is that you keep smiling. Stay upright.
Yep. This side of the flower bed.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna let you go for today, but thank you so much. It was great talking to you. We've done it, as I said, we get on the phone every year or so, but actually being able to look at you makes it better, and I appreciate it.
That's the price people have to pay. Look at my face.
Do you remember? I've got one air check of us that I've got that I may just tack on to the end of this, but I'm going to ask you if you remember this. It was when we were talking to Rush, and I said to him, this was my 40th birthday. I remember that because Steve Telliano and the gang back in the newsroom, they loaded up us with phone calls, and my parents called individually, and I think we had a call from the mayor, and Rush was in New York at the time, and he called to wish me a happy 40th birthday.
Yes.
And I told him that I had had a dream about him the night before. Do you remember that at all?
Yes, I remember not the conversation, the fact that that happened.
Yeah. I think I'm going to tag that on to the end of this, right. And because people will get a kick out of it. Just put it, just for your sake. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to edit this now. Oh, by the way, the word I was looking for half an hour ago was petition. People were signing a petition. Oh. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think of that either.
All right. Maybe I just won't even tack that on. It's just too much. It's too much trouble for the editing process. And I'd like to, I should have done it at the beginning and gotten your reaction and everything else. So
it does sound like a lot of work.
Yeah, it does. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I remember one thing I did hear on those tapes. I listened to maybe 10 minutes of it. Yeah. And there was a thing in the morning where there was a pole vaulter named Sergei Bubka.
Yeah.
Remember Sergei Bubka, the Russian?
I remember that.
Yeah, well, he was the world record holder in the pole vault. And you asked me, because I'd been a track coach, you asked me, what does it take to be a pole vaulter? What do you need? And I said, well, pole vaulters are the best athletes on any track team. And they're among the best athletes in the world at anything. But you need three things. You need world-class speed, because you're going to run down that runway. You're going to drop a 15-foot pole into a 6-inch box, and you have to run through that pole, push it up with your left hand, pull it down with your right. So you need incredible upper body strength in order to lift yourself, and core strength to lift your legs straight up in the air. And the momentum and the power of the pole is what propels you up.
And Sergei Bubka had just set a new world record, I believe.
Yeah. And the third thing you need is to be really stupid. Because by the time you get up there and get yourself over that crossbar, now you got to fall 20 feet.
Right. I remember that. Unbelievable. Out of all those years, we're thinking about the same bit.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with one other memory. This occurred to me because we're talking now in December. Today's December 9th. So it's the time of year, right? I think I probably heard the song. But every year around this time of year, you and I would play Christmas music coming out of the commercial breaks. Mm-hmm. And I remember one morning we were playing the Christmas Waltz by the Carpenters.
Yeah.
Which is a great classic. And I just started playing it, and you made some little comment, and we just let the music go. And then one of us said, "Oops, I think I stepped on your foot there. Sorry." And then we began.
Lead.
Yeah, exactly. And then we began to ad lib about as if we were dancing. This is not something you and I discussed. We didn't talk about it beforehand. We didn't say, "Okay, you say this, you say that." It's just it just happened.
Yeah.
We talked off and on through the entire song, talking about and theater of the mind, putting it in the listener that, my God, these two men are dancing, they're waltzing together.
I never thought of that. I remember the commercials for a vacuum cleaner we used to do, and at one point we decided we're going to take it apart and see what made it happen.
Right.
So we're not only ad-libbing lines about taking this thing apart and doing it with no rehearsal.
With the sound
we're
effects.
Also Foley artists. We're taking material that's and making noises that would be appropriate to taking and whoop and reactions and so on. It was fun.
Yeah, you take a minute-long commercial, make it 10 minutes, give them a heck of a ride for their money. And I remember, and the end line that we came up with was buy an Oric. It really sucks. And they sold more vacuums in Sacramento that year than anywhere else in the world.
And I just hope people were happy with those vacuums.
All right. Thank you. You have a great day doing whatever it is you're going to do.
I still haven't decided, but I got 2 hours more than you do. I'm still in California.
That's true. Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
All
Thanks.
Right.
Good
Take
talking.
care. Say hello to Joyce for me, please.
All right. And my best to Caroline.
We'll talk again soon.
Forward to it.